All right, welcome everybody. This is the Consciousness of Awesomism, and we're gonna spend hopefully about maybe an hour today just having a conversation about, kind of some of the key themes that run through Awesomism on a regular basis. And it's really more like an invitation just to get to know what that consciousness and that particular path is all about. So I've invited a panel today of different people who are really instrumental to the Awesomism process. And so for right now anyway, I just want to have everybody give a quick hi when I introduce them so you kind of know who they are and a little bit about what they're doing within Awesomism. And then you guys are going to hear a lot more from them as we get into the conversation, just about the process and, just what the consciousness here feels like. So anyway, Sharon Hall, I'll introduce her first. Sharon runs the show, is what she does. She keeps everything home. Operations director and things like that, but she's the person that you talk to when you're having any kind of trouble whatsoever on the back end. So Sharon, you want to say a quick hi so people know?
Hey, how are you guys?
And then Terri Henderson is facilitating level 1 and level 2 right now. And she's been doing that, for 2 cycles now? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and she's had a really fun trajectory. She kind of was doing level 2, and then, it was time to do level 1. And so anyway, hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see new faces and familiar faces. This is great.
And then Meredith Gross is facilitating level 3, as is Karilyn Gomez in this cycle. So I'll introduce them both together, and then I'll pull Karilyn out for another piece as well. Meredith is also the one who does, if you're in the monthly energy sessions, she is the brilliant person who takes all of my nonsense and turns it into something clear and coherent and beautifully understandable. So, Meredith, please say hi. Okay, Meredith.
Am I on delay?
You're on delay, and you sound a little bit like you're from another planet.
Yeah. It's showing. Is that showing?
That's all right. You're kind of, so hopefully it'll work itself out. Karilyn Gomez Karilyn Gomez was actually the person who made the transition from me facilitating Awesomism to kind of the next generation of practitioners and facilitators that would support that. And so she's had a really pivotal role in this process in shifting over to teaching level 1, and she did that for quite some time. We kind of learned the ropes together as far as that facilitation. And then she's also been supportive of level 2 and level 3 in the ways that she has. She's co-facilitating with Meredith right now. And in the next cycle, we'll probably step back from that and kind of create, she's where Sharon is the structural person, like on the ground structural. Karilyn's kind of the incognito structural person. She does the behind the scenes kind of interweaving. So Karilyn, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, welcome everybody. It's really nice to have you here, and hope you enjoy our conversation.
Nice. And then Elif, last but not least, Elif is part of the core team as well, and she's really been doing a lot of sound healing work and things like that in all the different levels, and also kind of just creating like a bigger vantage point. She's in our meetings, she's watching that, so she gets to hear things from a little different vantage point than necessarily facilitator, so she can reflect things back. amazing sound healer too. If you guys have ever been to one of our live events, you know that in the last one, Elif did a piece of work there that was amazing. So anyway, Elif, do you want to say hi?
Yes, hi everyone. Glad to be here. So nice to see you all.
And Elif is from Turkey. So beautiful, that beautiful accent comes from Turkey.
Coming to you.
So, so anyway, what I'd like to do today is I would like to kind of just start with what, to me, Awesomism really did start as a, you know, as a focus on the collective consciousness of the children and energetically sensitive children. But it really very quickly began to become a real opportunity for deeper self-awareness, deeper personal growth, right? And I think what it's actually merged into now after this amount of time is it's almost gone from the collective consciousness of the children to various aspects of, you know, any part of our dimensionality that we can tap into. And then it's kind of moved into the integration of all of that so that we really can function as what I'm kind of terming like everyday avatars at this point. So the collective consciousness of the children is an amazing jumping off point. It's an amazing platform. The body of information that's held within that consciousness is really, it's really hard to describe in words, and it also really takes a huge population of people to access because there's way too much information in there for, you know, any small group of people. And so within this process of moving from the platform of the children to moving into maybe our most coherent galactic selves or angelic selves or different dimensional aspects, and then into what I would call that everyday avatar, there are some key themes, there are some key terms, key conversations that go on in Awesomism all the time. And so today, just as a way of introduction, what I'd really like to do is just bring up some of these topics and let, you know, kind of let the team talk about them from their vantage point, give you an opportunity to get to know a little bit about them through their conversation and a little bit more about, you know, what's going on kind of behind the doors of Awesomism. So anyway, and then also what I'll say is since it's a fairly small group on the call today, if you have a question or you have something you want to interject, then just unmute yourself and we'll kind of take those along the way, okay? Because we'll kind of break this up into a few different topics. So one of the very first themes that I think is really powerful through Awesomism, and it's definitely started with the children, is the concept of coherence. And so I want to talk about or open it up to the team to talk about, you know, what is coherence from your vantage points, and how does that play out within the Awesomism process, you know, as we really get to know ourselves. What I will say is that there is an individual coherence and there's a collective coherence. The individual coherence, to me, is represented by our ability to have all of the parts of ourselves working in a oneness, where none of the parts of ourselves are working against any of the other parts, right? So to me, that would be my loose definition of coherence. But can we open it up? Does anybody want to share a little bit about what their experience is of coherence within the process?
Hi, am I still alien?
So far, okay, but let me hear what's...
Okay, so I would just add to that, coherence for me also as an individual, it's just the parts working as a oneness, but it means there's a great fluidity. So if I'm in a situation where I really need to have a strong mental body, that can happen. And then if emotions come in, or if I get dimensional information or angelic information, it's seamless. You know, I don't have to kind of go meditate and kind of get that information off to the side, that it's more in the moment and able to move among the different bodies seamlessly.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I think that, you know, just watching what happens in some of the calls that we've done, where we're kind of creating those pathways of coherence through multiple realities, I think that playing in that space is really important for what you're just talking about, Meredith. So, Karilyn, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did, just in the experience that I had with facilitating, especially with level 1, that it's so fascinating to see people come in as very much individual, but as the group works together, you get that individuality and that sovereignty and that coherence. And when that builds within themselves, then the whole group does a decided change and all works together. So there's a real, it develops a real support. It develops that place of the group being safe, so that they can bring forth any kind of things that they need to bring up. And all of that, just, it builds a deeper coherence that they take with them back out in the world.
There's something, I think there's something too, Karilyn, about when we focus, because we focus so clearly on coherence, and like you say, it does create that container, that safety. There's this opportunity for the vulnerabilities and the skill sets or whatever will come in. It's like it's all up for grabs, right? You know, as we can talk about anything there. But I think because of that focus on coherence, it's like something exponentially grows.
Something bigger, yeah. Absolutely.
Something bigger happens. You know, I know we all heard we're all, you know, better together than we are separate and that kind of thing. But what's interesting is that the individuation seems to enhance, and the individuation enhancing seems to enhance the whole, and it kind of perpetuates itself.
Yeah, and it's just, it's a loop. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Elif, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, just add on to that. That whole group coherence, even from the first cycle, when I joined Awesomism, made it possible for me to feel more anchored into my day-to-day life. I mean, whatever was happening in Awesomism, in that container, made me feel more anchored, more belonging to Earth than I've ever been. So it's also a stabilizer, both like a means and a container, energetic container, of feeling more of who I am and bringing it here to my daily life. So it made it easier for me to immediately, from the first cycle, level 1, like quickly, just feel more balanced.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's for me is a
perfect sense. And just so you guys know who aren't doing this every day, it's like the way that coherence is really built is it's built through a lot of conversation about, you know, there's a lot of energetic work that goes on within Awesomism, and very dimensionally, and dimensional energy work. And that dimensional energy work is also coherent, because the more we focus on certain realms, the more we build an awareness of that realm, right? And so that's very coherent too. So it's a combination of this coherent energy work and the conversations that happen that are very human. You know, it's like, how does the very human conversations that go on about how these things play out and apply in our lives? So, you know, it's one thing to play in these realms. It's another thing to do it coherently enough that it like shows up, like Meredith was saying, in your physical reality, so that it actually enhances your physical reality. So Sharon, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just being a mom with 3 energetically sensitive boys, when you get into awesomism, you get to learn it very well and what works for you quickly. And I love having the container of the oneness and the people in awesomism supporting me as I'm really trying to understand the concepts of what's coming in, and then you're doing it in the body and you're projecting it outward to bring it back to your family and holding that and being that space, not holding, but being that space for them to figure out what they want while you're figuring out what you want, and the allowance and the acceptance and the growth and love that you create with each other. That I do love about awesomism.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's interesting to me listening to all of you guys. I'm just like hearing it as you guys are speaking. And we've spoken about this before too, but awesomism is very much, although there's a process to it, it's a very individuated experience for each person, because each person that comes to it, they have different skill sets, they have different masteries, they have different life experiences. And I think that is part of the richness that I love here too. It's just watching how it unfolds. Like one subject, coherence, is heard in a bunch of different ways. But for those of you who aren't on the panel, do you have questions about coherence, or is there a comment that you guys want to make? Anything that you have to share? You can either raise your hand or just unmute yourself if you would like to. Nothing? Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, so I want to go into another piece that I think I just alluded to within this consciousness, which is awesomism, and that's self-mastery. And usually when I say self-mastery, people go, oh, you know, what am I masterful in? I don't know what that is yet. And I think that one of the things that, you know, the kids told me from the very beginning is assume self-mastery. Assume that people are coming to this process already masters. And I personally love that, because I see it in every single person that is both on this panel, sitting on this call, you know, people that I talk to in private sessions. It's so easy, from my vantage point anyway, to see the mastery that's already there. And so it's not, I don't feel like it's our job to tell anybody what their self-mastery is. I think it is, however, maybe our opportunity and our blessing to really notice that in somebody and help it come to the surface, you know, help just draw it out. And I think that the self-mastery piece for a lot of people, especially if they're new to energy work or energetics or things like that, sometimes that self-mastery is way out dimensionally, right? But the further out you go, the more you're able to see it, right? And one of the other challenges is if your mastery is way out in some other multidimensional realm or some other universe or some other time, space, reality or whatever, it's like, how do you know that that mastery exists unless somebody starts kind of going, oh, I noticed that about you, or I see that. And as you notice it and you give it meaning, that mastery naturally and organically kind of just draws itself right into your consciousness. And the more it draws itself into your consciousness, the more it interacts with your neurology, your psychology, your biology, the more it informs you of who you are, right? So nobody has to inform you who you are. We simply need to pay attention to where that mastery already exists. And this is exactly how it started with the kids. You know, it's like you can look at a kid diagnosed with autism or an energetic sensitivity, and on the human physical level, doesn't look like things are working so well. You know, it's like having challenges and a little discombobulated. But then you go to this other realm and you kind of see, oh my gosh, it's like the clarity and the consciousness and the coherence, the mastery that exists there only needs to be paid attention to. And this is what we found as we began to help parents pay attention to that. Then the child began to demonstrate that. So it's no different for an energetically sensitive child than it is for any one of us, right? Because we're all energetically sensitive children. You know, we're all trying to learn what our masteries are and draw that forth. So anyway, assuming mastery, guys, self-mastery, how are you seeing that one play out? Terri, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, I mean, assuming the mastery is the starting point. And what I love is when we get into these discussions and people start noticing what questions are coming up for them. What are they curious about, right? And they also start noticing as we discuss, you know, experiences or new information or whatever the topic is, they also notice that, hey, that thing that person, you know, is talking about, I kind of had something like that too, only it was a little bit different. And the more that we're curious and we explore, right, the more we start to realize, hey, I keep gravitating in this direction, or I keep having experiences, you know, in this space, or hey, you know what, when I tried to do this, it was that skill set was just there. And, you know, it's a wonderful thing to watch unfold in level 1 and level 2. That's one of my favorite parts about facilitating.
I don't know about you guys listening in, but I've always had this question in my own mind, like why do I think the thoughts that I think? Why do I even consider that? Why do I even think or consider that coherence or self-mastery or multidimensional reality can be, you know, I remember somebody asking me a long time ago, one of the very first workshops I ever did, I went and I said, we were getting ready to do some energy work, and I said, she said, what are we going to do today? I said, we're going to kind of just rewire the neurology so that we can receive more of the multidimensionality that we are. She goes, why the heck do you think you can do that? You know, and I thought, what a brilliant thing. I mean, it's so true, because why do we believe or seek to do the things that we know are possible? We seek to do those things because they're part of our multidimensionality. They're part of our mastery. And every single time we kind of go, yeah, you know, I don't know how that's going to happen, but we're going to try it. And then we try it and we do it. You know, every single time something comes in that seems like it's a little bit, just out there or bombastic to our consciousness, you know, it's like the minute we kind of go, well, I'll just play with it. I'll just try. I'll be curious, like Terri said. And we go into that experience, all of a sudden we begin to realize, oh my gosh, that potential and possibility has now become a reality, right? And that's something that happens within Awesomism and assuming that self-mastery, I think, all the time. So anybody else want to speak to self-mastery?
For me, kind of the backdoor way of it is that feeling I've always had about being different, and how, you know, I would be in a situation with other people and I would feel it differently and I would view it differently. And I didn't know what that was and what that was about. And it's very easy, like, I'm weird and different. And so for me, Awesomism, what's great is it gives us all a chance to explore that. And so, you know, the coherence in the group and bouncing back and forth to kind of have that self-awareness of what's that difference of mine? Where do I pay attention? What does it mean when my body has that experience or I have that feeling? So I got to develop my own language around what my differences are. And, you know, it's a great process for that. It's nobody telling me this is how you're different and this is the end result because we're all so unique. So I really appreciate kind of that individualized road to self-mastery and the freedom we all have and how we support each other.
And just like, I think too, Meredith, just like back to the kids as a base in some ways, it's like difference does not denote disorder.
Yeah.
And, and I think that's the other thing too, for those of us who are really stepping into, to our masteries, to our, our Buddhahoods, our Christhoods, our avatarship, all whatever that is, it's like, as we step more and more into that, it's so easy within collective human consciousness to make ourselves feel like we're disordered, instead of just different, instead of unique. And I think that too, what I'm watching is as these veils thin more and more within our collective human psyches, it's like the more we can have those conversations, I think it's so important. And I love that piece about the uniqueness too, because some of our mundane conversations, I would call them mundane, although if anybody listened in, there's nothing mundane about them, because it's kind of the nuts and bolts of, how everybody's experiencing their multidimensional reality. But again, to bring it right down into the human experience, and this is where it makes me feel anxious. This is where it makes me feel excited. This is where I'm confused. This is where, and to be able to work through that kind of conversation, I think is huge for the integration process of that kind of reality. So, Elif, did you have something to share about?
No, you basically said it. I was just going to say, I think one of the most unique points of awesomism is that there's nothing to be fixed. Yeah. There is nothing. That's the whole perspective. There's nothing to be fixed about the kids, but while working with the kids, while practicing in the practice calls, while connecting with the kids, we really understand and embody that there is nothing to be fixed about me either. There is nothing to be fixed about anyone. It's just assuming mastery, as you said.
Yeah.
For every one of us. So.
Right, and how and again, it just doesn't make good sense that if you're looking for what's right in somebody, just at a very basic psychological level, if you're looking for what's right within somebody versus what's wrong, they're going to show you what's right about them. They're going to show you where they feel coherent and safe and okay and confident, and they'll just bring that right to the surface. So anyway.
And that's exactly what happens that's how I felt. I felt my being validated through awesomism process. And as my, being gets validated, I can open up to explore more of, my curiosity or,
Yeah, it makes sense. Richard, did you have something that you wanted to ask? Oh, you're muted still. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can do the unmuting on my end. For some reason, you are not showing up on my list. Oh, there you are. Yes, you are. Unmute. There you go. I did it.
I was just, from the point of uniqueness, the acceptance of one's uniqueness, the thing that I don't always remember to do is to bring the unity of the uniqueness back to the collective in integration. And that's just kind of where I'm coming from at this point in time.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense, Richard. Let's see. All right. It makes perfect sense. And I think the other thing too is what I hear a lot is, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody that I hear it from. I think that's probably why I hear it so much. It's like a nice reflection back. But the further out we go, the further in we need to go, right? And so what's So to me, that always equates to, yeah, you can go out to the multidimensional realms of your being and play, you know, with your, you know, blue beings and your galactic self and all that other stuff. But again, all of that information to be integrated has to come back in through your psyche. It has to come back in through your neurology, biology, and psychology. And I think that a lot of times, especially if we're working where we all work in really big energies, in tiny spaces most often, but big energy, tiny spaces. And what happens is that it's almost like the bigger we get, sometimes the more we forget that we have to be focused on ourselves. You know, it's almost like the more that you have access to the collective consciousness of all that is, or of humanity, or whatever realm that you might be playing in, the more you have to check that reality with your own biology, psychology, and neurology. Because, I don't know, I mean, I'm sure that this probably has happened to many of you. When I very first started, I was kind of like an energy junkie. You know, it's like I kind of wanted to jump to the next realm and the next realm. I was having so much fun learning about the kids. And if I'm honest, there are still moments when I kind of go, whoop, just went a bit too far. You know, it's like, how am I going to integrate that one, you know, kind of thing. So I guess that, yeah, just that focus, no matter where we play, just continually checking that with our biology, psychology, and neurology. Does it feel okay? Does it feel good? Is it making us lighter? Is it bringing more love and light and joy and experience into our lives? Or is it creating just another drama, you know? Because we really want it to be, like we were saying earlier, as fluid as it possibly can be. And when it is, it has a huge impact, you know, for so many people. I mean, seeing somebody suffer through anything has a tendency to have people kind of back up from that. But having somebody know the fullness of their being and being able to express that in a way that's enthusiastic or joyful or grounded, you know, kind of matter of fact, this is just what happens, man, that really touches a lot of lives in a pretty amazing way. So, and I'm as guilty about that one as anybody I can imagine, maybe more so. So, anyway. Anything, Richard, did you want to add anything? Okay, get you here. There you go.
Well, it sounds so easy, but
it's not.
In practice, when no matter what it is that I try to integrate that comes all the way through, it's almost a courageous act to do something very simple on the outer, but to face up to all the things that it doesn't look like are going to be accepted, and et cetera, is just quite, it's not fun. So
I think, thank you for saying that, because that's exactly that's the truth of it, you know, and it's also the invitation of it. Because I feel like, especially lately, it's like the more things are shifting and changing, the more the veils are thinning, the more the realities that we have been creating within Awesomism and through our multidimensionality for years now, they're manifesting in my physical world, right? So, you know, it's one thing to talk about it as from an energetic perspective, but it's quite something else to talk about it from, hey, you know, these galactic beings show up. You know, this interaction is taking place. This is the information, you know, whether it's from source self or other dimensional realms of self, that's available. And so again, like you're saying, that's not typical. That's not neurotypical. Let's say that.
Well, at least the first time, it's always harrowing, seems to me.
Exactly. And that's kind of the, this will be a good topic for everybody, because I think that there's also that, what I call like the bushwhackers of the world. You know, it's like all these individuals kind of on the leading edge of whatever reality they're on the leading edge of, or whatever technology they're on the leading edge of. And there is this kind of bushwhacking that goes on. And that bushwhacking, I agree with you. It's like, I don't know about you, but very often the very first time something, quote unquote, happens to me, it feels like it happens to me. I don't consciously kind of go, oh, okay, I'm going to go do this, that, or the other thing. It's simply a manifestation of whatever we've been doing energetically. And the first time it happens, it's kind of like, oh, okay, what do I do with that? You know? And then you realize, oh, no, we already put that in place energetically. This is just the physical manifestation of that. So there's that part. I agree with you completely, Richard. And then there's the other part of, how does that interface with our humanity? Because our collective humanity says that's not possible. You're not allowed to talk about things like that. You know, that can't be grounded here. That's not a reality that exists within the consciousness of a humanity that's, you know, desperately trying to get out of the fear factor. You know, and when you're already functioning from love, and not only functioning from love, but functioning from love multidimensionally, you are going to come up to the belief systems of others, and you rub people the wrong way. I mean, it's like, that's the other thing. I think it's like, you just rub people the wrong way when you say what is true for you, when it may not quite be true for somebody else yet. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, the mind. When you say it can't be done here by humanity, it comes in on me that it's the mind part of humanity that's reacting in that way. It's not the heart, and so it's strange reactions you get are almost that, just strange reactions. But to weather that, then it goes away.
Yeah. Well, and the fact is that what is true is that it can be done by all of humanity, and that's why we get to experience it. That's why we get to play with it. It can be. And so, and like you said, it's like just the mind, just like our own minds, the mind is the only thing that says it ain't possible, right? You know, so, but then the heart must know it's possible, because the heart keeps asking us to play in these different places and spaces that we know can be made manifest here as part of a reality within this consciousness. And so we get to play, you know, and the more I can remember, it's play, you know, it's just play. We can do it from that vantage point. The more fun it feels. So.
Well, and it feels like, too, that's exactly what we're doing in Awesomism.
Go ahead. Karilyn, you're a little bit quiet.
Oh, how unusual.
Maybe it's my end. Go ahead. Be boisterous, my dear.
No, I was saying that's exactly what it feels like we do in Awesomism. Is like you have these individual experiences, but all of that does feed back into the collective. So it's, speaking to what Meredith is talking about being different, whatever our experiences are, it does get supported in the container, and it goes back out into the collective. So there is that evolution that goes on. That is it's a big part of Awesomism. That's it. Yeah. So it supports, Richard, what you're saying, and it brings in the individual experience with that, but a support with it at the same time, so it doesn't feel like you're going it all alone, and that you're the only one bushwhacking, that there are a whole lot of people bushwhacking.
Yeah. Yeah, and bushwhacking in all kinds of different places that interface with where you're bushwhacking.
Yep.
You know, and I think that part, you know, there's some days I wake up and I know I've told the team this several times. It's like, I can't believe I get to have these conversations every flipping day. I mean, it's like, this is the general means of conversation. And it's really, and every time I do have that level of conversation, it's almost like the stressors just kind of disappear. It's like anytime you get to be your authentic self and show up in that entirety. I mean, there's just not very many places in the world to be able to do that, you know, in your full authenticity. So that part feels good too. Anybody else want to add anything about that conversation? Any parts of it? Yeah.
One thing I would just add real quick is, you know, once you have that sense of being seen and part of a coherent group where you're allowed your differences and you can explore your differences, it's much easier for me to go back into those spaces where I haven't felt previously allowed, or I may have felt judged or misunderstood. And I get that differently. You know, I sort of like, oh, I can explore that position that may feel more narrow and may feel more fearful, but it doesn't constrict me. You know I have this safe space over here, so I'm more free to explore, you know, other realms and be more open-minded to other thoughts as well. So it kind of bleeds over again into that daily life and just makes it more easy and flowing and fun. Just fun.
Yeah. I think one of the things too that you just reminded me of, Meredith, is that like when we're back to the coherence piece, it's like as we're sharing those different experiences, like you were saying, it's I think what especially lately, but it's been happening all along, and I know I've talked to all the facilitators about this. What's so amazing about facilitating any one of these processes is that there's such a reflection back of different aspects of ourselves that, you know, maybe could use some support, some coherence building, some, you know, so it's like, even in the facilitation process, there's such a learning that's going on. And then you move that into these different levels. It happens in all the different levels from what I've watched, and core is what I'm facilitating. The core level is what I'm facilitating right now, so I can speak to that directly. But what's interesting in that place is that it's like, have you ever been in an experience where everybody that's talking to you is an aspect of you, and you know that? Every single, you know, it's like you got this feedback loop coming from every different angle. And so we'll pick a subject and we'll talk about it and we'll start expanding it. And then people will say what they know about it, what they're, you know, what they have to add to that information before we do the energy work. And every single person, like Meredith was just saying, it's like you add this little, somebody will add a nuance over here, and you're going, that's part of me, that's part of me, that's part of me. And so again, it's like, on the one hand, there's this safe container, and then on the other hand, you've got all of these different aspects of yourself that you can witness, and witness through love, you know, like not witness because somebody's calling you out on something, you know, it's like, it really is this opportunity to, and it's not even through, it's just through the conversation. Everybody becomes so aware and so alert that you're seeing those different places and spaces within yourself. So, Sharon, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to add too, the other thing that happens for me is when I'm feeling supported and honored in my uniqueness and stuff, it's so much easier to go to the grocery store or to the mall or those places that are so heavy consciously, especially the beauty parlor kind of thing. You know, you're all this woman and travel, you know, And you can just sit there and just honor everybody where they are and just smile through it in a daily life. And it's not, I'm going to die, you know. And I love that piece about awesomism, to be honored for that uniqueness, that I can go out to those simple places that are so difficult for me and have a smile on my face.
It's almost like it becomes a container too, because I know I've heard several people say over the years, it's like, well, I get in this sticky place, or I get in this place that doesn't feel really comfortable, and I just call on the consciousness of awesomism. And whether you're in awesomism or not, I'd invite you to do that, because it's pretty cool consciousness. You know, it's a pretty nice body of information. It's meant to be a container in many ways. So yeah, that makes sense. I do that a lot myself. So, like, help. Richard. Let me see. There you go. Go ahead.
I think people have come from a much kinder settings than I have, because when I'm sitting there looking at myself in the form of a relationship, it drives me utterly insane. That can't be me, which is the non-acceptance parts, of course, of your own self reflected back. And I keep sitting there and saying, why is it still here? So you know, I'll happily move into the joyous space of enjoying what I see, and away from horrified, I guess. So, but there's that reaction too.
Well, I think that's a good point, because, you know, again, it's like we're so conditioned that if we're different, that we must be broken or we must be disordered, you know, and different is really just an opportunity to love, in my vernacular anyway, to love beyond what we've been able to love before. You know, and that's what I was saying earlier, that starts with ourselves. We have to be able to find that within ourselves. So, and relationship is a really interesting dynamic, especially when you have access to as much information as you have access to. And so a lot of times, you know, we've been, again, you think about collective human conditioning, you know, it's like, think about the, I'm going to call it a limitation. People, well, I'm sure I'll get information back around this, but there's the collective human limitation is that relationship with anyone or anything should follow a certain trajectory. You know, like a basic, like male-female relationship or lover relationship, female-female, male-male, whatever it is. It's like any lover relationship, it's almost like, well, you're supposed to do this, and then you're supposed to do this. It's like it follows these prescribed steps by whom, I don't know, but it's societal's agreement, the society agrees that, you know, you're supposed to go on that date, then you're supposed to fall in love, and then you're supposed to get engaged, and then you get married or live together or whatever, maybe have babies together, who knows what you do. And, but 9 times out of 10, there's a whole loss of authenticity somewhere in that mix. And so one of the first things that I think is coming back, or can come back, when we start accessing more of our multidimensionality is, I'm going to call it, this has been my experience lately anyway, it's like this fearless authenticity, right? And so if we can begin to be fearlessly authentic with what we know and what we experience in other realms and other dimensions and other realities, and if we begin to have a group of people that we can share that with, and that feels comfortable, then all of a sudden, I think, you know, for most of us, the last place to really put that into place is in our daily human lives. You know, so, and very challenging to do, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship, you know, to be able to drop that fearless authenticity right down into the awareness of, you know, hey, you know, I know that you're used to me having dinner with you every night or having a date with you every time at this time, but right now I'm integrating huge volumes of multidimensional information, and I just need to sleep for 5 days, you know, or I just need to, whatever it is, and to just be able to authentically share that. And for me anyway, it's also the ability to share that and try that out in the physical world, basic mundane kind of day in, day out stuff, and then take it back to this Awesomism group and say, okay, this is what I tried, and this is still how it feels, a little wobbly, and I don't really like that feeling, and, you know, and not sure, you know, it's like, so it's almost like in the integration process, which we'll talk about next, in the integration process, we're stepping this vibrational frequency, we're transducing this vibrational frequency down through various realities, and we're and as we shift it down through different dimensional realities, we ultimately have to bring it right back into our human reality. We have to interface it with the people at the grocery store, the husbands, the wives, the partners, the lovers, the children, all of it. It all has to get interfaced. And the only way I know to do that, or at least at this part of the game, is just be as authentic as I can. It's like I can't, it's like when you can no longer hide the antennas that you have popping out of your head. You just gotta have to say, you know, this is how things are for me. Exactly. And what's so fascinating about that is what I've noticed is when all these people that we think can't meet us, you know, because of the awarenesses that we have, it's not true. They can meet us where they can meet us. They can share and dance with us the way they can do that. And when we give them that opportunity, they also begin to understand a little bit more of, you know, what it is like to have those kind of skill sets. Again, we invite them to love beyond what they've been able to love before, right? So I see this especially over the years, man, how many times I've talked to people, and, you know, it's always the husbands that aren't quite up to speed, or it's the kids that don't quite understand, or, you know, it's all of that. And it's also true that sometimes when people step fully into their authenticity, that relationships that they've been in for a while just don't work anymore. You know, it's just like, I think that's that truthfulness with ourselves. So I guess the last thing that I do want to bring up, just because we touched on it briefly in this last piece, is integration. And, you know, as I was saying, even though I've always kind of, well, yeah, I'll say always kind of like to outer edge kind of stuff, jack myself up just a little bit just to see if I could reorganize the whole thing and get that anchored too. It's not so exciting now as it was when I was a little bit younger, but still fun. But I think that what I have truly learned just firsthand is the statement I made earlier, which is as far out as we go is as far in as we need to go. And by need, I mean as far out as we go. If we will go that far in, then we will feel integrated with the information that we have access to, so that information doesn't kind of blow us out of the water or negatively impact our central nervous systems, which happens all the time for people who spend a lot of time out in the energetics. And then all of a sudden that energetic level of awareness, that refined level of awareness, naturally and organically starts making its way into the body. And if that's frequencies really high, like it is for almost everybody that comes to Awesomism, then when it hits the body kind of goes, yeah, okay, what just happened? You know, it's like either the body's going through some physical anomaly, or the mental body gets really hyperactive, or the emotions just start flooding. And one, to know that that is a normal part of integration, that in and of itself can alleviate a lot. But the other part is to know how to care for yourself during that phase of integration makes that phase that much easier. And you know, we joke about this all the time within Awesomism, because I think it's, you know, for somebody who doesn't have or doesn't believe that they have access to what everybody has access to, but they're not yet tapping into it, it's really easy to look at other people that have certain skill sets and go, ooh, I'd love to do that. I'd like to, you know, I'd like to have telepathy, or I'd like to work multidimensionally, or see in the realms, speak light languages, whatever. And what's so interesting is that anybody who's truly on a path of integrating the fullness of their self-awareness will know that that path is, although can be very joyous, like Richard was saying earlier, it's not a cakewalk, you know. And so this opportunity to have support as we're integrating is huge. And it's one of the things where I will say often too, it's like our masteries and our vulnerabilities are equally important in Awesomism. If you can come with your vulnerabilities to the same degree you can come with your mastery, I mean, there's really nothing that you can't embody, which I think is awesomism. So, no pun intended. Anybody else? Integration? Your integration experiences, maybe even. What did it feel like to integrate for you guys? Karilyn, you want to start?
Oh gosh,
Or maybe not. You don't have
to. Yeah, it really, what it feels like with that integration, there's such an opening and that willingness to step into that. For me, it just felt like a lot of things fell in place. It was like the first steps were the hardest, and the most exciting. And it just felt like
the yes.
Each unfolding that I did, each step that I took, it was easier and easier to be really comfortable with myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, speaking to that authenticity, you know, being Karilyn to the max.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so there are, the little glitches and kind of, not very comfortable along the way. But even that, it all shifts, and it really just felt like all the pieces came together.
Right. Well, and the discomfort is only telling us where there is coherence, you know, that to be built. You know, it's like,
well, yeah,
it's only telling us where there's something else to play with. So you get to the point where sometimes the discomforts become as exciting, maybe not comfortable, but they become as exciting as the smooth flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. There is much clues for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Different.
Yeah. So anybody else? Terri, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, the vulnerability piece, I mean, I think that's one of the ones that's really key, right? Because until we're willing to just be vulnerable, and that safe space to be vulnerable in is very important. But until we're willing to be vulnerable and saying, this is where I'm at, this is how it's working or not working for me right now, in that moment, your universe can start conspiring and synchronicity and everything to support you. But until we can get to that place where we're refusing to look at it, or we're not ready to say, or we don't feel safe enough to say, then our universe can't step in and co-create with us, right? And support. So,
yeah, and I think Terri too is like, you know, and I've watched this within you too, it's like sometimes the challenge in the safety is not when necessarily things are feeling vulnerable and like you're falling apart. Linda's had this, I know, sometimes too. It's like, it's sometimes when you're feeling so good and so clear and so aware and so in love with life, and it's almost like when other people are feeling, oh, they're going through whatever they're going through, it's like that's also the container to be safe enough to say, well, yeah, that's where, you know, really allowing everybody their process, so that, yeah, that's where you are right now, and this is where I am right now, but not one negates the other, right? You know, so being able to come to it and go, oh my God, I feel great, when everybody's going, I feel like shit. Yeah.
And that's, you know, and that takes it right back to the coherence, right? And the container piece, because as we move through our various moving parts, and we're all in different spaces of integration within those moving parts, where we are grounded and we are coherent, that's how the container supports groundedness and coherence, you know, within the group, within each individual in the group, and within greater awesomism. So yeah. So it's okay that we're not all on the same page. Maybe even beneficial, because through that we can make.
Right. Well, and I think it's actually really important that we're not all on the same page. Right. One, it speaks to the uniqueness of everybody's process. But two, you know, there, within a container like that, you need people who are in that moment coherent, stable, in ease, in grace, in love, in joy, so that those people that are needing to dismantle something can dismantle it. And when we really see the value of that, wow, it's like, you know, Linda's sitting there as the love bunny on the day that I'm wanting to fall apart. It's like, how wonderful is that? Because because I can receive that love and that support from her and fall apart all the easier, you know, because that's what's, and there, you know, in any given stage of integration, there is the construction and there is the destruction. And I think that we've been so conditioned as a humanity to love the construction part of things that we really don't embrace or value when things are falling apart. You know, it's like we forget to kind of go, wow, this is absolutely being ripped apart, shredded. There must be something new coming. There must be, you know, it's like we're not noticing how things are getting reorganized. So anyway, we are right about on the hour. And so I don't want to kind of overdo it too much. We're really interested in having these kind of conversations on a more routine basis with, you know, whomever kind of wants to have the conversation, and kind of picking different topics and things like that as we go along. And in future ones, you know, taking different questions even, or comments, or, you know, places of focus for other people as well. So we'll kind of keep you up to date as to when the next ones are going to happen. If you're on the newsletter that we send out, or on the mailing list, then you'll get, you know, information about that automatically. There's stuff on Facebook that'll be posted as well. And the only thing else I want to tell you guys is we are getting ready to have a live event in Scottsdale, Arizona at the end of September. And it's these events, although they used to be for just practitioners, because that coherence within the group of those practitioners has grown to the degree that it can, it really creates an opportunity to invite other people into that process and to have some pretty amazing shifts pretty quickly, simply because the container of that coherence is already built. So if you guys are interested in coming and joining us at the end of September, it's just going to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Scottsdale. Please do. We'd love to see you. And we're going to be talking about everyday avatars, the divine feminine, its invitation to us to integrate more fully into this time-space reality. So anyway, hope you guys had a good time. It was awesome to see all your lovely faces. And I'll see you guys again soon. Bye, everybody.